just like it says in the bottom corner of the screen by Jonathan Bonehair. And howdy, and welcome to Damn Good Dogs. We
Mm-hmm.
got we got all the
Welcome,
guys
guys.
back. Yeah, everybody's here. As you can
We back.
see right above me, you see the show, aka the show, and they got Bone. And Bone, I see you got that stick. Got that nice stick in your hand too. So
Smoking a
yeah, there it is.
little Partagas Valle Verde today, man.
All right, looking nice there. All right.
Mm, fancy.
We
I
man,
have
tonight
a
we're going what you
have
got?
a Wild Leap Side Bay double IPA. If anybody wants to know, very tasty.
Oh, look, I'm not gonna reveal what I have, but I do have a red cup.
We all know what a red cup means.
We know what that means.
you you know how red cups go. So it blends right in with the show too, by the way. So yeah, welcome to the show. We're gonna recap the game, South Carolina, UGA. We're gonna preview the next matchup for UGA against UAB, team from over in Alabama. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and then all the things that have come from these games, and then more. Let these guys have it. So get ready, buckle up. It's time for damn good dogs.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we are here. Oh, gentlemen, your thoughts on the game from Saturday?
Well, it wasn't quite the cakewalk that I predicted, but I will say the one thing that we talked about that I think came true is that South Carolina was incredibly one dimensional. It was Spencer Radler, a couple of wide receivers, and that's all they had. I think their running backs, and I'm pulling it up right here. Their running backs ran for a total of 18 yards in the game, with Spencer Radler having 35 rushing yards. So we were able to make them one dimensional. We were able to make the second half adjustments. There's a lot to I think take negative from the game, but I think at the end of the day, making the team one dimensional, we were gonna pull it out. But yeah, Brooks, what did you think there?
Well, first of all, let's at the level that this defense is at year to year now. Like you said, you can't be one dimensional in the playoffs. Like Kirby Smart is too good a defensive coach. We have too much talent on the defensive end for you to come in and be one dimensional. And the other thing I'll say, a staple to me, like I think about Kirby Smart, what what is his philosophy? What is he good at? Second half adjustments.
Yes, sir.
Second half adjustments. We could have a very mediocre second half and a first half, and I always have faith because he's done it so many times. He's going to come out and make adjustments, and you saw that he came out in the second half. On the defensive end, we shut them down in the second half, and that's a staple of the Kirby Smart era: second half adjustments. So that was my kind of overline. There's a lot of things to get into the weeds about. The big picture, the second half, South Carolina being too one dimensional, and Kirby Smart doing what he's done throughout his career at Georgia, making those second half adjustments.
And I'll say, Brooks, as like longtime Georgia fans, that's something we didn't have in the past. That's the trust and that we didn't have in the past, that we would come out in the second half. We actually, I think we're always worried about other teams' second half adjustments against us. And Kirby has proven over and over again that he will come out and make those adjustments. And honestly, we made them, I feel like, more on defense than we did offense. I think offensively, with the new clock rules in college football, we only got one drive in the first half. We only got, a drive or two in the second half. And with the clock running after every first down and all that and these changes, a team like Georgia that plays relatively slow compared to other teams, I pulled it up. We are 50th in plays per game, 90th in plays per second, and that's Georgia over the last 3 years. So that's not a recent thing this year. We just don't play a real quick brand of ball. And I think that's an adjustment we might end up having to make a little bit to get some more drives in, especially if we're off to a slow start. But I think Georgia was able to make those adjustments, especially defensively. Offensively, we were driving the ball down the field. We just weren't making the red zone, getting the red zone opportunities and turning them into touchdowns. And back to our season preview show again, the one thing that I was really worried about was that kicking game with a freshman kicker. And
Yeah.
it's been a little scary. He was 1 for 3. That last field goal he missed, man, that thing was as ugly as it gets, wide right. And I think we might be seeing a change in kicker at some point. That's something we got to shore up a lot.
Yeah, and this is the what do you, I love to get you guys' opinion on this too. Georgia basically had preseason games with the first two matchups, and this is like the first time Georgia's playing against a team that has at least players that look like them. You know what I mean? May not be the
Right.
same level across the board, but at least match up looks like them physically. And so, do you think there was an adjustment for that?
I mean, it was the first. There is when you play two teams, you start the season with two teams like we did, and go to South Carolina. I think there is an adjustment. How much I don't know, but that's definitely a good point. That schedule that soft first two games definitely may have come out and punched us in the mouth a little bit and caught us off guard. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, we've kind of started out the same way in all three games. So
Hmm.
now we came out against much scarier competition. So you can't get yourself in that same kind of hole that you can get yourself in with the earlier players. But I mean, Turnbull brought up a point in the comments there that I think is important, and it's also what Kirby said in the press conference. The number one adjustment with the kicking game is keeping the kicker on the bench and letting kick extra points. He's been
There
real
you
good at
go.
that. Like Georgia, for the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, even when we were one of the top teams offensively, red zone has always been something we've kind of struggled with. And it's kind of crazy with the running games we've had and the tight ends that we have that we haven't been able to convert more. And the red zone was the tell of the first half. South Carolina got it done in the red zone. Georgia didn't get it done in the red zone. And there it was, 14-3. So it was funny. I was working a big cigar event Saturday, and to tell you how my friends were feeling about the game, I had 192 text messages after the game. So I think Brooks sees 75 of them. But yeah, Georgia fans were not feeling super confident, I don't think, in that first half. But we did know that Kirby was going to come out and make the adjustments needed. And where I was a little scared, I think we did have confidence at the end of the day he's going to get it done.
Yeah. Hey, what was some of the things? Can you reveal any of the conversations in the first half? It'd be nice to get
So
a little
go
insight
ahead, Brooks.
on some of the fans.
Okay, so we didn't. Obviously, we weren't too kind to Mike Bobo. But yeah, I mean, we weren't too kind to Mike Bobo. I think I will say the couple things that we noted, like, hey, throw the ball downfield more. Hey, let's get the ball to Brock Bowers. He immediately kind of came out and shored those things up in the second half. Like that was like one of the first few things he did was get the ball to Bowers and throw the ball downfield. So we were a little validated in that. I know that was a couple of points. I'd have to look back because I mean I was, when I started after a few tequila shots, my memory is a little fuzzy about the group chat. So, but those are the things I do remember. So
we need to do a text of the week from each game. Like that'd be a nice little segment from the group chat. So we're all guys that
Yeah.
went to Georgia together, so we've been through a lot together.
I remember being really upset on one of the touchdowns. There was a clear hold on the outside. Receiver had his arm like wrapped around the quarterback. So I was very upset at that. I remember.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Francis. Shout out to Seamus. Shout out to you guys, and shout out to Turnbull. Turnbull says no one just was keeping the kicker on the bench. So that tells
Yeah,
you
I mean,
how
I,
he
I agree with that.
feels about the kicker.
We got to get in the end zone, but there is going to be times where when we're playing an Ole Miss at home or we're playing Tennessee on the road that we're going to need those 35-yard field goals. And, that scares me as much about this team than anything right now. And that's as scary as anything for me right now, because it is a big deal. We wouldn't have won, some of those games last year without the kicking game, even when we had such a great offense. But I have a lot of stats on the whole Bobo thing if we want to get to that eventually, because I know that we had that lined up as a conversation topic. So I definitely want to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, to me, we're good with it. We're fluid out here. So, first of all, for those, I know a lot of people that are tuning in now, all the diehards, they know who Mike Bobo is. But what about those who, the people who are, hit that like, subscribe notification and they're watching tonight and they're like, who's Bobo? I mean, guys, can you give us a little backdrop on Bobo?
So Mike Bobo was a quarterback for Georgia in the 90s. So he is from South Georgia. He's Georgia through and through. Offensive coordinator under Mark Richt. Then he left, became a head coach at Colorado State, had a stint at Auburn, I believe. I might be missing one job or two in there, but came back to Georgia as like a analyst, quarterbacks coach kind of thing.
Yeah, South Carolina for a while.
Yeah, he was in South Carolina as well. Came back to Georgia last year, worked under Monken, maybe the last year or two. And it was interesting because a couple of guys, we had an after the show chat last week, me and Brooks and David, who's commenting on the show. We had a after the show chat. And one thing we talked about is kind of why did Kirby make the decision to hire Bobo? And I sent Brooks and Dave a video of Kirby talking about it. And it was really interesting because what he talked about is that when Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, left for the NFL, what he told Kirby was that so much of what he did as an offensive coordinator came from those coaches on the staff. And that he told them no matter who you put in place there, you're going to be in very good hands. And that was what Kirby said about Monken. And whether we agree with that or not, should Kirby have gone out and found a different offensive coordinator? Or I think Kirby's idea was to really keep it in house and keep what we have been doing going. But I don't know.
Well, I guess my thought, and I mentioned this when we were talking. Kirby's always gonna have this defense ready, to the degree that he needs a great defensive mind as a defense coordinator. He does it right. He can run that defense, but what he has to do, he's got to make sure that he evolves offensively. And you've seen people like Nick Saban do it.
Yes.
And that's what he's got to do. And so for so long, Georgia was this pro style offense, and as nice as that is, maybe it's a good recruiting pitch. Obviously, you got to evolve in college, especially on the offensive end. And I think you're a premier job. Get some more. I don't know if he took the full amount of time to see what was out there as far as the quality of candidates is what I'll say. Maybe Bobo was the best hire for this particular spot in time, but I think he should have gave it a little bit more. Thought he should have gave it a little bit more time and interview a few more candidates, because that's the side of the ball that he is going to have to make sure. I think the offensive coordinator is arguably the most important spot on this staff. So he's got to make sure he has the right guy, is what I'll say.
And I think you brought up a good point as far as like the idea of bringing in somebody fresh and bringing in like fresh ideas. You kind of touched on it, but we've got to continue to evolve. We can't be complacent and say, oh, we've got the offense figured out. And I think Nick Saban went through that kind of the last couple of years where he was bringing in all these innovative guys and then kind of said, oh, we've got it figured out. We can run it through the system now. And this game is so fast paced and changes so quickly that I think that's a good point. I've been kind of a Bobo defender with friends, but as I delved into the stats a little bit, it was interesting. So I'll pump into it a little bit. This is nerd time. We're averaging 30 points per game right now. We're a quarter of the way through the season. We've played two nobodies in South Carolina. 2022, we were fourth in all of college football in points per game. 2021, we were ninth. Right now, I'm sorry, we're 30th in college football in points per game. So we've dropped off from 4th to 9th to 30th. In 2019, pre-Monken, we were 49th in college football in points per game. So Monken in 28 games against SEC opponents averaged 37 points per game, which is pretty impressive. Prior to that, we were at 34 points per game. So there is some evidence that we're not doing the explosive plays that we were once doing. Is that a Carson Beck thing? Is that an offensive coordinator thing? We're 25th in plays of 20 or more yards. Last year we were first. The year before we were 7th. So we're not hitting those big plays right now. And you would think that we would have hit some more of those big plays against some of these lesser teams. To me, the feeling I get is that Carson Beck's playing to not turn the ball over. And he's not turning the ball over. And that's a good thing. But at some point, we got to take some shots and take some risks. And I don't know if it's either Carson doesn't have that factor where he's willing to take those risks, or is the offense setting him up and saying we're not allowing him to take those risks. I don't really know.
Yeah, I think I can add to this and give a little bit more insight. Carson Beck, 74% completion percentage, only averaging 8.8 yards an attempt though. So that gives you a sense of we're not pushing the ball downfield. And to reiterate this point of what kind of offense we're running right now, we are 3rd in the SEC in first downs. So we're moving the ball, but it's a methodical type offense that we're doing right now, to your point. So we're lacking in explosive plays for sure. And Carson Beck, while accurate, has not been pushing the ball downfield.
Is there almost an accuracy percentage that's too good? You know what I mean? Like if you're
if you're 74%, yeah. If you're in the 70s, you got to question what kind of throws are you making, right?
Yeah.
The more the joint can do.
That's some Desmond Ritter shit.
Yeah. Now Turnbull is saying, hey, can you name a SEC quarterback playing better than Carson Beck right now?
That's a good question.
He did outplay probably one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC on Saturday. Now, that being said, the guy was down and didn't have a running game.
It's hard to judge Rattler because of his supporting cast and his line and all. I do think he's up there. I just think Carson Beck's has been solid to almost to a degree. It's just kind of like, okay, you can manage the game, but can you make plays when it counts? Can you? And I saw a lot. I read a lot of articles looking at his reads where he was targeting that first read and sticking on it, and he had. If he would have progressed to a second, third, fourth read, he had people open down the field. I saw plenty of examples of that in that South Carolina game when I was reading all the articles breaking down. So that's another thing. Like if he's as a quarterback, you got to progress through that read. You got to progress through those reads and not just focus on that first read. So I do have a lot of questions about Beck, and I can't say. I'm not going to sit here and say he's he's the best quarterback in the SEC. I can't say that. Like I said, I think Rattler is. I think there's a lot of athletic quarterbacks in the SEC who maybe get a pass because of their athleticism. You think about Jaden Daniels, you think about Milroe, you think about Milton. All those guys are super athletic, but are they pure passing quarterbacks? Can they sit back in the pocket and make the reads? I question that, even though I love the athleticism, I love the talent. And you saw what happened with Tennessee and Florida. So, guys like that, I think sometimes the athleticism, it looks all nice and flashy, but, I need a little bit more out of my quarterback. I love the athletic quarterbacks, but, I need somebody who can drop back and progress and make reads and play out of the pocket as well. So,
well, I listened to an interesting breakdown from John Stitchcomb, who was there In the early 2000s at Georgia, offensive lineman, he does a lot of broadcasts for the SEC now. He kind of went through the kind of three weaknesses he's seen in the first quarter, and I thought it was interesting. First quarter of the season, he said number one was the offensive line, that they're underperforming for what they're supposed to be doing. We've had the injuries, but they're not giving in the time and getting the push that they should be getting with these players that we got, and that's something that can be corrected. What's funny there?
He said, Hawk said I avoided the question.
So they're not getting the push that I think they should be getting right now. Secondly, our running back room. I mean, Edwards is the clear number one, and he's still on a pitch count. And I don't know that we necessarily have that second running back right now that we've usually had. We usually have that top 2 and 3. And lastly, he brought up an interesting point, was our tight end room. We have one of the best tight ends in football, but according to him, and a guy that really breaks down film and offensive line play and blocking play, I mean, he's saying Delp is not doing the blocking that we've had from Washington in the past, who's now in the NFL, and we're not getting the blocking from the tight end that we have in the past. So that is affecting the run game and the pass protection game as well. So I thought those were some interesting points from a guy who watches a lot of film. But the offensive line thing, the good thing about that to me is I think that's fixable. I think that's something that we can develop and get a cohesive line going, even with some injuries that we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. David mentioned that the first half performance by the secondary was rough, um, particularly number 14. So he's really talking about this cornerback group, saying that they're struggling, and the loss of Bullard was huge. So, what's your guys' comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, you got to at this point with the injury stacking up. This is something you have to mention with this team. McConkey still hasn't played. Bullard, we mentioned that. Mims, our right tackle, got hurt. Milton, no matter what you think about him, he's still in and out of the lineup being hurt. So this team has a lot of injuries, but the thing about, it's hard to use injuries as an excuse with Kirby Smart because he's built so much depth on this roster that we're just like next man up. But you got to mention it, and I think it is playing a factor, especially especially with like people like McConkey and Bullard. Those are two big pieces. So injuries are something you definitely that needs to start being mentioned with this team because they are stacking up.
All right,
Yeah,
there's Turnbull again. Oh, go ahead, Bone. You have something to say?
No, I was just saying on Turnbull Hawk is what we call him in the group's comments. I think I think it's true. I mean, I think the offensive line came out in the third quarter playing a little differently. Now, we'll still say in that first half we did drive the ball down the field. We just weren't able to finish, and that was kind of the difference to me more in the second half. But yeah, they're way better than what's going on in Tuscaloosa. And I would have to say they're the best offensive line in the SEC, hands down.
Yeah, I think going back to this quarterback question, by the way, since I avoided it, I do think my expectation was that KJ Jefferson for Arkansas was going to be the best quarterback. And they've kind of been up and down. I do like the guy from Ole Miss. I like Dart. So those two guys I would put still at the top. Like I said, Arkansas, they haven't been impressive, so maybe I do still think KJ Jefferson is probably one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. I do like Dart as well. But the quarterback roster in the SEC is at least something to be desired for sure.
Yeah, definitely looking like that this season. Turnbull, again, Turnbull Hawk, Ron, he has another comment out here. So you guys will take a look at that.
That's impressive. And Kirby talked about in the press conference, the injuries. They ask about turf causing injuries because we practice on the indoor playing facility. And he said, basically it's weird this year. Almost all the injuries are happening in game. We've had a lot of in-game injuries, but I mean, again, I'm with Brooks on that. Like the way we recruit and the 2 and 3 deeps that we have, like it's hard to use that as an excuse. It's next man up. We have depth. We have depth that's juniors and seniors. Like I just don't, I don't think the injury things are things that we can use as an excuse. It's going to slow us down a little bit, but other than the running backs, I feel like we should be pretty deep everywhere to be able to step up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an embarrassment of riches, if you will. There's a lot of institutions that wouldn't be able to survive, one injury,
Yeah.
let alone a few. Jeremy has a comment as well. Last week he asked the panel if the lack of a full battery of receivers will limit Bauer's production. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. One thing I'll say about that, the perception that we didn't target Bowers is kind of off because he did lead the team in targets versus South Carolina. So I think he had 8 or 9. He's second on the team in receptions at 13. Levitt has 14. So, I mean, you can't, I don't know, you can't really say we're not targeting him. Um, I do think McConkey would make a difference. McConkey's a really reliable deceiver who I think Beck would consider like a security blanket, much like Stetson Bennett did. So yeah, I mean, it's. I do think. Well, the other thing I will say, this team has a plethora of weapons on the outside.
Yeah.
McConkey is is a really good receiver, but this team has a lot of weapons, and I think like Lovett and Robert Thomas are going to start as the more and more games we play. I think you're going to see them really step their game up. There's the two really talented receivers who I think are really explosive and make plays, and I like Rosemary Jackson as well. So I'm gonna, even though I do think we missed McConkey, I'm still think, and if you think about the play selection in the second half, especially this game, we were passing to set up the run. And I've said this all along, our weapons on the outside are the strength of this team from a skill positions perspective. Dejon Edwards, if he comes back, he's healthy, he gets in, I think, he's going to be a solid starting running back. But the weapons on the outside are this team's strong suit. They need to lean into that. I think you're going to see them throwing the ball to set up the run. And I think that's what they need to do. I look at the skill position, and that's where all the talent is, on the outside.
And
I
what about
totally
Ladd?
agree. I
What
think
about
Ladd, I
Ladd
mean,
too?
he's week to week. They're saying he's not going to play this week against UAB, most likely, which to me makes sense. Don't rush him back for a game that we're a 42-point favorite in. But I think Ladd's going to provide a lot of leadership, too, on the field. I think that's something we're a little bit lacking in skill receivers and quarterback. And, Carson, where he's been there a while, he hasn't been on the field a lot. So I think Ladd's going to be huge to get him out there in the huddle. And he's a great slot guy. He's fast. He's quick, and he makes plays. So I think that'll be a big deal when he comes back. But I'm with Kirby and the training staff and not rushing him back this week, even though they didn't ask me.
Maybe they need to. Maybe they'll start doing that too. You mentioned 42 uh point the point spread, right? I was like, wait a minute, you said 42, not 4-2. No, you're saying 42, and so that gives us a segue into the next matchup for the Bulldogs. UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, led by new head coach Trent Dilfer. And for those that name sounds familiar, you've probably seen him on ESPN. You've probably seen him on Quarterback U. If you watch the NFL, you've seen him on the Seahawks. Let's see. Well, I think Seahawks or somewhere around there. Baltimore Ravens. I know you've seen him on there. And so Trent Dilfer is coaching there. Uh, like we kind of expect, we already kind of know what the outcome is going to be. But what do you all want to see in this matchup?
Well, I think this is another example of a very one-dimensional team. I mean, they are a passing team with a very little running game. And so, I mean, what I want to see more than anything is to come out offensively and score touchdowns early. I want Carson back on the bench in the third quarter. I want us to come out and score touchdowns, finish drives, execute the plays, hit some big plays down the field, and that's the number one thing I'm looking at in this game. I think it's a great time to continue to rest some of the guys that are injured. I think DeJohn Edwards is going to be on a pitch count again. Limit his playing time, get Cash Jones in there, get the other running backs in there. But I just want to see us finish drives early. I want us to see, I want 21 points in that first quarter is what I want to see.
Yeah. I like that it's a night game. I feel like Georgia doesn't get a lot of night games. So, I don't care about this matchup. We should take it. I like the fact that it's a night game. I think that'll keep the fans into it. A 12 o'clock noon game for UAB I think that would be a little bit dead. But, the night game will get the fans going, which I like. This is not a good home schedule. So, any little thing that can make it a little bit better, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the fact it's a night game. I just want us to take more shots downfield. I want us to be a little bit more aggressive on offense. It's hard to have expectations for these type of games because Kirby is notoriously vanilla. Like I mentioned on every show when we review one of these games or we play the scrub, we're vanilla. Offense, defense. So my expectations are low. I would like to see a few deep shots, open up the offense a little bit. But yeah, I'm just excited it's a night game. The other thing I'll say, mentioned this pregame, Trent Dilfer, top 5 worst quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl.
This guy right here, look at that form, man. Look at that form.
It looks like he's about to throw it 70 yards in the air, like just straight up.
So, take that as
No, they talked about it in the press conference that Kirby said he actually called him quite a bit when he was recruiting players, when he was running his quarterback U, just to kind of get his feel for different guys that they were recruiting. But he can obviously put a program together down at UAB. That's a program that was on the verge of extinction a few years ago, and it was pretty crazy, that whole situation. So hopefully he does well there. They got a big stadium, they got a big fan base, they have a huge group of alumni. Hopefully he can put together a program down there, and I'm sure the $1.5 million or whatever we're paying them to play is going to be a big help in that.
Oh man, look, I would have played in the game. 1.5 million. I run over to Team Sports and get a helmet and show the
I don't
passes
know
out
if I
of
would go out there against that Georgia team for 1.5 million. I don't know.
I think we need to take a few minutes and talk about some UGA NFL related notes if that's okay.
I think I know. Yeah, I think I know which way you're going. Before we do that, let's go ahead and make sure everybody click on this QR code. Follow Mr. 411 on TikTok. Type in Mr. 411 or just scan that code right there. There's those 2 ways you can get in there. And also follow us on YouTube. Type in 411 Sports World, please, on YouTube and hit the subscribe button so you can see more of the damn good dogs and other shows that we're doing. Oh yeah, and you can get the show NFL picks weekly. You don't want to miss that. Man, what a breakdown last week from the show.
I know, gave it to you.
Yeah, and you powered up before that too. You powered up before that too. I thought that was a nice twist there.
That was.
Absolutely. But we do appreciate everybody. But now let's shift back to what you want to get to there, show.
Let's go in chronological order here. So early in the week, Sean McVay, Rams head coach, said that Stetson Bennett was going to be was going to be benched for a little bit while he's dealing with something. I like the way he handled it. He didn't give it away. I like how he respected Stetson Bennett's privacy. I won't speculate. The secret group checks will speculate on what's going on, but I won't. But I just want to say, I hope whatever he does, he figures it out and he gets back, because I do want to see him out on the field. I thought he was going to get a chance to play this season, even though Matthew Stafford having a resurgent season here. But I do want to see him back on the field. I do think he still has a chance to have an NFL career as a starter. But yeah, I wanted to point that out first. Thoughts?
Yeah, we all have a soft spot for Steady, whatever he's going through. It sounds like the team is behind him. They're not like cutting him. They're not leaving him behind. Whatever he's going through, they're working with him. And I think they have him really in the plans for the future there. And so it sounds like to me, like when he got drafted there, it was the most perfect situation for him he could possibly be in. And hopefully Stafford will be a mentor for him as someone that's been in the league a long time and also like to party back in college. And hopefully he'll guide him through this. But yeah, I wish all the best for Stetson. I think the whole UGA fan base is wishing the best for him, and hopefully he gets back on the roster here soon. And if not, hopefully he gets whatever he needs to get handled, and gets it taken care of, because there's a lot more to life than football.
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well stated. I know I ran a poll earlier in the season uh, about Bennett and whether when he's going to begin play for the Rams during the regular season was going to be one of the first 8 games or the last or the back half. And a lot of people said that he was going to start playing around the back half of the season. So, uh, for that side of things, that's a little disappointing. But if he's getting the help that he needs, and it helps him long term, that's what's most important.
Yep.
All right, what else you had there, show?
Obviously, last night, Nick Chubb suffered another horrific leg injury. I don't know which one's worse, the Tennessee one or that. I think this one may be just visually worse than the Tennessee one, because that one was one last night was pretty bad. But the second kind of similar injury, when he kind of destroys his knee. But yeah, I just want to shout out to Nick Chubb, one of my favorite UGA running backs of all time. And I mentioned this in another show, like, put it in the rules. If somebody's wrapped up high, you can't go low. I mean, you put all these rules in protecting quarterbacks, like protect the running backs, protect the other players, the other ball carriers on the field, man. A defender can't even like put all of his weight and land on a quarterback. And you can put in a rule that if somebody's wrapped up high, you can't hit them low. I mean, that's a pretty simple rule. But prayers up. Hopefully he recovers quick. I thought he recovered, if I remember correctly, I thought he recovered super quick from the injury he suffered at Tennessee. I could be wrong about that. But hopefully he comes back and is still the caliber running back we know he is.
Well, yeah, and Nick Chubb has been proven himself as possibly the best running back in the NFL the last few years, and consistency and what he's done has been really incredible. And he's really been having to carry the offense, and so hope he's back next year, man, back early, and is able to get back on the horse, because he's still got 3 or 4 years of solid career time and some more contracts and everything. But what I love about Nick is I know he'll be a big advocate for Georgia football when he gets done with his NFL career, and he was a damn good dog, to tie in the show name there. He's one of everyone's favorites. Talk about a
Yeah,
running back room with Sony Michel and Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb all at the same time. I remember when Gurley went down and Chubb came in against Tennessee, and that was one of the most dominant running back performances I've ever seen in a game. So, he's a special player, man. He's from Georgia and a really good dude. So,
yep. A shout out to Nick Chubb and best well wishes on the recovery and all those good things. And there's a nice shot on there in your Bulldogs uniform. Uh, so yeah, that covers 2 things there. Here's some comments. Chubb is an elite human as well, and that's great to say.
absolutely.
And when someone can ever say that about you, that is definitely awesome. David has a comment here. I think you guys will get a kick out of here. Was that shade at Gurley? Bone.
I didn't do any shade. I don't. What was the shade there?
Who's
Oh.
your favorite running back? Not named Herschel, obviously.
I mean, Chubb's up there for me. I mean, Noshawn was just so electric at Georgia. I mean,
Yeah.
he set the place on fire, dude. I mean, he set it on fire. Like the experience of those games when Noshawn was doing his thing was unbelievable. So him and Tyson Browning for me are my That's hot too.
Awesome.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
Uh-oh.
Also, shout out George Pickens last night. 4 receptions, 127 yards, 1 touchdown.
Oh, there you go.
He's getting it done. And George Pickens had an all-time Georgia moment when he got in a fight with a Georgia Tech player in the end zone and threw him into the wall like he was his child. I mean, it was incredible.
That was great.
All right.
I think
Brutality.
as far as like the most talented wide receivers to ever play at Georgia, I think AJ Green's one, but I think Pickens is up there. Like,
Yeah,
I
he's gotta be it.
I don't know if he has a stat. Talent-wise.
He was out a lot.
But man, he looked good in those practice games too, man, with some of those catches he was having up there in Pittsburgh. Turnbull has this to say too. He wants to, let's wrap things up with the little Philly Bulldogs talk. And so the Philadelphia Bulldogs are still doing their thing. So, any comments there? What's going on with the Eagles and some of the dogs up there?
My take on the Philly game was I love seeing DeAndre Swift fall out. I liked him, and I feel like he's been injured on and off. I like the way he looked. He looked nice. And I always liked him as a running back at Georgia. He's really shifty. He's got the burst. So it was good to see him ball out and get that chance. Hopefully he sticks as the featured running back there because I think if he stays healthy, he's got the talent.
Dude, I mean, Philly is just they have such a young team full of Georgia players that are, especially on the defensive side, that are young. And it's cool that they all get to grow together. I watched this video that Turnbull or Hawk sent us that was all the Philly, Georgia guys going out to breakfast together or dinner together or something. And it was such a cool thing because the guys that have been there a couple of years were helping out the new guys. New guys were just like, what's it like playing a 17-game NFL schedule? And they were just kind of walking them through it. And so they got these like older brothers to rely on and real leaders. And I think Philly has set themselves up. It's something that you don't think about from the business level of an NFL executive. But if you get in a bunch of guys that have played together in college and that have that leadership hierarchy already built, there's some really cool things you can do there. And they're challenging each other harder than anyone else is because they're all brothers from college and knew each other when they were, 18, 17, 16 years old being recruited. And so it's a really cool thing they have going. I think it's going to be great for Philly. Unfortunately, they're in the NFC, but I don't think the Falcons have to worry about contending anytime soon.
Wow. Shots fired over there to the show over there.
Unnecessary. Enjoy undefeated 2-0 Falcons, please.
That's true, dude. James Cook looking good as well. I mean, Georgia's got a ton of running backs out there that were kind of role players in Georgia that are now taking over in the NFL. It's fun to watch, man.
Yeah, reminds me of Calipari and with all the players he had coming through Kentucky, and you're like, man, what, they're not lighting up the scoreboard, but then they play in the pros is like a totally different player, to a degree.
Another post game conversation we were having is just looking at our all time rushing, receiving, quarterback, yards, leaders, and our all time running back list is pretty strong. I think you can stack it up with any program in the nation. So.
Yeah,
I mean, Alabama had that run, but I think we're right.
Receivers not so much. Quarterbacks not so much. Running backs, yes.
Yeah.
My goodness, man, what an episode today, man. We accomplished a lot, and we did it within the time frame that you all predicted too. And so I know you're gonna get your prediction right with the game this weekend. You got a prediction right on the length of the show today, the topics and everything. I think I give everybody an A+ today, and especially the people who tuned in and commented and all that good stuff too. So well done today. Much appreciated.
I think Georgia knocks it out 56-3 this weekend. I think we cover the spread by a long shot. I think we got a real angry team right now.
Covering the 42.
Yeah, Kirby's practice is not going to be fun this week. So I'm excited to see him come out and just put up points early with the first team offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
+42, Trent Dilfer. Just too good of a coach. He's not gonna get beat by 14.
David says the first cover of the season.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it.
You heard it here. You heard it here.
It's gonna be a cakewalk.
All right. Well, that's weird. We're gonna look. We're gonna look to see how it turned out.
Forward to drinking heavily and watching a game at 7:00.
Yeah, I noticed you mentioned that. I noticed you.
It's gonna be great recapping this Tuesday, and I'm just gonna be like, I don't know.
Well, we got
Yeah.
Auburn. We got Auburn the following week, so we got a lot to talk about, especially if
It's more
Auburn
of a
wins Saturday.
preview show. More of a preview show next weekend. I'm gonna rely on you, Harry. I don't know, man. Watching the game at 7, that's gonna be iffy for me.
Yeah,
Memory's
I know
gonna be
you.
real hazy.
Hey, I know Brooks is emphasizing that late start. So yeah, it gives you more time to tailgate and other things. Yeah, you know, so give you more time. All right, David says bang the under, showcase Stone Cold pick. Okay,
I was
that's
high on
David.
Tennessee last weekend, so you shouldn't trust my judgment.
Oh, all right. Well, that's a wrap for today. We'll do it again next week. You mentioned Auburn's on the horizon. We'll take a look at the UAB matchup. You never know, but we definitely gonna find something to take out of that, and so it should be fun. All right, and Turmo, one more comment before we roll out. We appreciate it. Should be Tennessee week. Yeah, he said it should be Tennessee week. Oh man, he's really
Yeah.
starting some fire, isn't he?
Well, Auburn's supposed to be later in the year, so they moved it up. So it kind of messes up our tradition of a late fall Auburn game. So yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I predict
Well,
we escort Auburn to a L on the road. I like that one. Thank you.
wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Look at there. All right. Well, there you have it. The show and boom, Mr. 401. We thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
All righty.